So we've managed to successfully loop the character, and what we're looking to do now is to have this character loop for an extended period of time. As what we have right now, we have the character looping for 33 frames, and the amount of frames that I would suggest for this assignment is around 400 frames, which is 16 seconds worth of animation. So I'm going to show you, we're going to utilize the range slider. We're going to drag that out. And what happens is that when you open up Maya, you will get access to 200 frames in the by default. However, you can get access to more frames by typing in the value in here. So I need around 400 frames. So I just type a value of 400 in this section here. And what that will do, you will notice that the timeline is now from 0 all the way to 400. So that is how you can get access to a lot of frames. You can get access to a lot of frames. You just type in the number and it will extend the timeline to that number of frames. Just note that the keyframes will get smaller. So if I select here, notice that the keyframes that which are from 1 to 33 will appear closer and smaller. If I was to drag the range slider back, you will notice that they will become a little bit more magnified and they will be more spaced out. So just bear that in mind when you extend the timeline. We are going to use the graph editor to create what is called a post-infinity loop. So we have an animation, we have 33 frames worth of animation, and what we're going to have happen is that this is going to, as we continue to move across the timeline, it will continue to loop the animation over and over, so that when we are rendering our frames, we will render around 400 individual images instead of just 33 images for just one step. So to access the graph editor, we are going to go to Windows at the top here. We're going to go down to Animation Editors, and over here we have the graph editor. Now, anytime you see a word that is highlighted in green, that is just indicating that that is a new feature for the current year for the software. So I'm using Maya 2017. So you will notice that under the animation editor, you see where the graph editor is in green. So it's a new feature in terms of its location. Eh, I'm going to click on the graph editor, and what will appear is this graph like window. Now, just like how you would navigate within the 3D space, such as panning, which is the shortcut to pan around is Alt and pressing the middle mouse button to pan, but you can also use Alt and middle mouse to pan around in your graph editor. If you roll the mouse wheel, you're able to dolly in and dolly out. You can also do the same by rolling the mouse wheel. Once the mouse is within this area, you can dolly in and dolly out. Now I'm going to explain how to interpret the graph editor and how to use it. At the moment, I have a control curve selected on this character. Now, if I was to click in the empty space, so now I have nothing selected. You will notice that there nothing is appearing in the graph editor. But if I select a control curve on the character, for example, if I select this control for the foot, you will notice that it displays over. I'm going to just extend the graph editor a bit and bring this over. Now, if you look closely in this left-hand panel here, it is displaying the name of the control curve, which is, if we look in the channel box, it's saying Alice 2 free version R3 IK leg L. That is the naming convention they use for this particular control curve. You will also notice that it also appears here along with the translate X, Y, and Z value, rotate X, Y, and Z values, as well as the scale value. Also, remember that when we're animating with the foot, we have special features within the channel box. We have special features in the channel box, such as roll toe. You will also see those values here as well. Now, what is happening in the graph editor on the right hand side? This is it's showing the graph of these lines are known as function curves. So you will notice that these function curves have different colors. So you will notice that this one is green, this one is blue, some of them are white, and we have some that are red. Now, these color-coded function curves correspond with the colors over here that we have for for the translate X, which is in red, green, and blue for the Z. So RGB is the color that they use to denote the colors here. So, for example, if the character is moving along the y-axis, remember y stands for the green, so you notice y is in green here. You know that this is a movement that is occurring on the y-axis, whether it's for the translate. So you'll notice you see more than one green function curve. So maybe it has a translate y movement on it and a rotate y movement on it. You'll notice that you'll see two red function curves. Maybe one is for a translate x and a rotate x. And the blue represents Z, so you'd have a translate, so the movement of the foot on the Z axis for this function curve, and the movement. So to know which one is which, if you click on the X, you know that this one represents the function curve here. This one represents the Y. If there are no movement, we didn't do any scale movement, so you notice that it's a flat line here. So that is how the function curves correspond. And if I click on this, it will show, this is the representation of the control curve, and it will show all of the function curves here. So that is what we're seeing here, function curves and how they behave and how the interpolation is occurring. You'll notice that you will see some hollow, let me zoom in, you'll see some hollow squares at certain points. These hollow squares represent keyframes. If you look at the top here, you'll notice you'll see 6, 8, 10. This is a representation of the timeline that you would see here as well. And it is showcasing where these keyframes are placed for all of these function curves. So the purpose of the graph editor is really to tweak or to adjust your in-betweens to get more refined movement, and 3D animators within the industry, they tend to utilize the graph editor a lot to get their movements refined and looking believable and realistic. What we'll be using the graph editor for this purpose, we're going to loop the animation. Now, if I highlight the entire character like this, you will realize that the graph editor now becomes more complex. If you look over here, you will notice that, if I scroll down, it will showcase all of the control curves that are selected for the character. So that would include the head control, hair control, shoulder, neck, breast, waist, hips, knee, feet, everything. The finger controls, it would select all of the control curves for the character. The hair cap is selected, so let me just lock the layer and just reselect it. So it just showcases all of the function curves, and you can see that it's quite a complex array, a complex setting here with all of the function curves. And we scroll down, we see all of that there. What I'm going to do now, we're going to go up into the edit panel up here, and we're going to go to curves. And we have a feature called post infinity. So we're going to go to post infinity Infinity means that something that is just happening continuously without an end. So you have finite and you have infinite, and so infinity just means it keeps going and going without an end. So we have post infinity, and when we go over, we're going to go on to cycle. So by doing this, so with the post infinity now set, we should see the animation play out throughout the entire duration of the 400 frames. Before we had even set this, it would have just continued to play out. It would have just played up to frame 33 and stop. So I'm going to now press the play button and minimize the graph editor. I'm going to press the play button and let us see what we have. Alright, so you can see that the time slider is moving here, and we can see now that the animation has been looped continuously for 400 frames. So that is how you loop the animation continuously. Now, let's say you want to get rid of the post infinity loop. What you would do is, I'm going to stop the animation now. If you go back to curves, remember I still have all of my control curves selected. So if I go to curves and I go back to post infinity, you have different options here apart from cycle. You have cycle with offset, oscillate, linear. But if we put it back to constant and I press the play button, you see that? It is still being looked. The time slider is still being played, but the character has stopped. That's because it will only play the animation from frame 1 to 33. And when it reaches 400, it loops back. It plays the 1 to 33 and then stop. So constant just sets it back to normal. I'm going to just set it back to post infinity cycle, because that is what we want. We want the animation to cycle throughout 400 frames. Right, and then we have the animation being cycled. Okay.